If I asked you to think about the future of American manufacturing for a minute, what image pops in your head? Is it this guy making things with his hands? In fact, conventional wisdom would tell us that this guy's time is up. Probably has been for decades. It's a simple matter of math, we're told. It's either robots here or it's China. And if the daily wage in China, the daily wage, is less than a cup of coffee here in the US, then why not just pay somebody else to make it? Why bother making it yourself? Well, I want to use my few minutes here this afternoon to tell you why we should bother, to tell you why I think conventional wisdom is wrong. And to help me with that, I've spent time over the past several months meeting with CEOs of companies, thriving, successful companies, that are making things with their hands. I'm talking about non-technical things like wood furniture and ceramics and leather. And they're doing it not with robots and not in China, but in places like Minneapolis and Brooklyn and San Francisco and North Carolina. And here's what I observed. Far from being down and out, and almost regardless of what product they make, companies employing American craftsmen actually enjoy a tremendous advantage over companies that outsource. And the secret of their success lies in something quite simple. All of these companies look at themselves as innovators, and they focus on innovating anything. You're surprised to hear about innovation? This is a talk on handcraft, right? Well, these companies are certainly making old school products, but they're not necessarily doing it in old school ways. Let me give you a few examples. Custom wood furniture. You hear about wood furniture and how it's made, you probably think it's slow and inefficient. And at Hickory Chair in North Carolina, that used to be the case. But then Jay Reardon, their CEO, challenged his production team. He empowered them to study how Toyota makes automobiles, and they incorporated that methodology into their wood furniture factory. They're still making the same product, but now they've completely restructured how that product moves through their factory. They're not reinventing the wood chair, just the process for customizing it efficiently. Well, what about leather? J.W. Hulme has been making beautiful small leather bags in Minneapolis for over a century now. But over the past several decades, they've seen a steep decline in people who were even interested in this type of work. And as you could imagine, that really threatened the future of their business. Jen Guarino, their CEO, told me that they had two choices. They could throw in the towel or completely rethink how they recruit and train. And so she actually got together with her competitors, and they created a common training program that was so unique and so creative that it's been covered by CNN and the Wall Street Journal, and it's working. Now the majority of their new recruits are young people, hungry for a career with their hands. She's obviously not reinventing the handbag, just how she trains a new generation of artisans. Well, what about the factory environment itself? People hear factory and they think probably dirty, old school, nothing like working for Apple or Google, right? And that's true in a lot of cases. But at Mitchell Gold, a company that makes upholstered furniture in rural North Carolina, and I mean rural, I've been there, they have a 600-person factory in the middle of a cow field. But they've created this amazing culture, a progressive culture for their production team with things like domestic partner benefits, college scholarships. They have an on-site daycare for their employees, 80 kids a day. They have an in-house chef. In other words, bringing Silicon Valley to the factory floor. They're not reinventing the sofa. They're not reinventing the sofa, but the culture of how they treat the folks that make it. Or what about this, one of my favorites? How often would you say that you get to a factory? Would you say seldom? Never? How many of you even know where to find a factory? Heath, a company that makes ceramic dinnerware like plates and bowls and things like that, they found a very clever way to bridge this gap by bringing their factory to where you are. They've literally plopped their 60,000 square foot factory in the middle of a neighborhood in downtown San Francisco. There's big glass walls onto the production floor. Now anybody can come and see how it's being made. They even put a coffee shop in it. Robin Petrovic, the owner, told me that ironically, by making his production more transparent to the local community, he's made it more valuable. Something impossible if he were making it overseas. Heath's not reinventing the dinner plate or the salad bowl, but they are reinventing the experience between craftsman and consumer. None of the companies that I mentioned are high-tech, and their products, obviously, certainly are not. But just because you're not inventing lithium-ion batteries or something doesn't mean that you can't be an innovation company. So long as you're innovating something, anything, innovating process, innovating culture, innovating the way that you recruit, innovating the customer experience itself, anything. And then here's the kicker for American firms, because you're probably asking, well, what's unique about that? I mean, can't you innovate your stuff and still have somebody else make it? Well, it turns out not really, or not nearly as well. These companies are able to innovate their stuff because they make their stuff. Their people know their product inside and out. They're the ones who've created it with their hands, and they care about it. And as a consequence, their craftsmen are far better equipped to impact change than any other company would be. Somewhere along the way, American business schools started telling the next generation of CEOs that the key to success in manufacturing is to chase the lowest cost labor market as it moves around the globe. But those people don't care about your product or your company. In some of those countries, manufacturers have a hard time just getting their workers to come back to work after a holiday. Pretty detached, right? And the danger in that, the danger in allowing sort of a detached, unengaged someone to make your stuff is that you lose the passion and the personalization behind it. And if you keep doing that, eventually you lose the touch and feel of your own product. And when that's gone, so is your ability to compete. At our company, for instance, our design, sales, engineering, production teams, they're all under the same roof. And so our products and the people who make it are not some abstraction in another country. And guess what happens? Our sales team can get customer feedback to the factory floor immediately because they're 20 feet away from the factory floor. Our craftsmen understand the subtle nuances of our design because they work every day, side by side, with our design team. Our engineers can leverage the individual skills of a particular craftsman because they know him personally. They know the clients know them, and they all end up caring more about the company and the product as a result. This isn't something unique to my company. I wish it were. Virtually every CEO I spoke with felt the same way about their American workforce. We may take this for granted, but this country is filled with people who want to feel a part of something, who want to be engaged with their companies, who want to, in other words, people who want to care. They care about their careers, they care about their customers, they care about making something of a lasting value. And if you're a business owner, you can say, well, that's just too expensive. I can't afford folks who care. I just need somebody to make it for cheap. And then we end up with this vast resource, all of these incredible craftsmen, artisans and craftsmen who are not being utilized because businesses don't understand the importance or they don't think about the importance of who's making their stuff. They think that their best option is to turn their workforce into robots. I don't mean literally into robots necessarily, but I mean by utilizing a robotic workforce, people who are just working for cheap, who don't care about what they're making, who don't know who they're making it for. But I think that's short-sighted. The smart entrepreneur will actually do the opposite. The smart entrepreneur is going to look at this vast resource of passion and engagement and tap into it. And in return, they'll unleash all of the innovations that are necessary to stay competitive. And these innovations, by the way, are necessary to stay competitive, even if you're making non-innovative things like purses or sofas or plates. So it's a pretty simple concept. I mean, when you think about it, what are these companies really doing? The companies that I mentioned that are engaging a progressive culture, like Mitchell Gold, or who are empowering innovation on the factory floor, like Hickory Chair, investing in the next generation, like J.W. Hulme, or who are celebrating, showcasing their craftsmen, like Heath. What are these companies really doing? At the end of the day, they're innovating by engaging their innovators, the makers, the people with the power to truly innovate your product. They're creating these environments, and then they're allowing innovation to blossom within it. That's the smartest place to invest. And in my view, those companies that get that, those are the companies that are going to succeed going forward. It's probably difficult, maybe it's impossible, for me to prove this to you on a spreadsheet. And a business school course would probably tell you otherwise. But I can tell you from personal experience, I've seen it time and time again over the past decade, that the innovations that are derived from personal passion vastly outweigh. They are so much more valuable than whatever difference you might be paying in wages. So think about this. Whatever product you're making, whatever it is, if the key to manufacturing success is to cultivate innovation, and the key to cultivating innovation is to make your own stuff with folks who care about that stuff, and if U.S. firms are literally surrounded by the most engaged workforce in the world, people who care about what they're doing, then how incredible, actually, to be making product in the U.S. today. So maybe the future of manufacturing here looks a little different than you would have thought. Sure, it's a future of robots and cheap foreign labor, But I believe it's also a future that looks a little bit like its past, one that belongs to those that engage the innovative spirit of the American craftsman. And here's the best news. This is a vast resource, and it's right here at our fingertips. Thank you very much.